All right, good evening, everyone. It is time for us to start class, and thank you for being here. And I know Pastor Ben's doing a training session with the Sunday school teachers, so he'll be joining us in a little bit. And hopefully he comes to class with a pass, right? So my name is Daniel Kaufman, and I have the privilege of speaking on the topic of ethical use of artificial intelligence. And we'll be getting into that tonight. And of course, I'm sure many of you, the topic of AI is a trendy one. It can be puzzling. It can also be kind of scary at times. And I hope I actually do maybe spook you a little bit by the end of tonight. I think I probably will, because it spooked me. And when we're talking about a topic like AI and how complicated that gets very quickly, my mind was drawn to James 1, which reminds us that if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given to him. And I think this is like all the topics that are going to be covered in this class. This is definitely one where we need wisdom and understanding from the Lord. How about we pray and we'll get started. Father, we ask for your blessing upon our session tonight. Lord, I pray that it be useful to the folks who are here. Give me the right words to say to make it the content interesting, but also understandable, relatable. Lord, as the world changes around us, and even as we see headline after headline, even today, of terrible things happening around the world, that you would draw us even closer to yourself, that we would continue to rely primarily, Lord, on you, and that we would not be tempted to use something like AI to sin or to cut corners where we shouldn't. But Lord, you would also give us wisdom when we do need to use it or we do encounter it. And Lord, we just pray that you bless our study tonight in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, when talking about computer technology and all that kind of stuff with my students at school, I often start off by teaching them, giving an example like this. Anyone recognize this image? That's our beloved 465, a part of it. And of course, as all of you I'm sure experience regularly, there's a lot of construction going on frequently, always at the wrong times, and always the exit we need maybe is closed. And but out there are lots and lots of massive machines that are doing incredible work, really, when you think about it. And those machines that are moving dirt, that are carrying heavy beams and mixing concrete and all that kind of stuff, they are a replacement, of course, for human labor, aren't they? They are mechanical muscles, essentially, that they replace our muscles by doing the work themselves. And an analogy to that is computers are kind of like that too, but they're not mechanical muscles necessarily. Computers are an example of a mechanical brain. It thinks for us to do tasks that we either would rather not be doing, or perhaps it's a task that a computer can do better than a human. I don't think any of us would argue that a crane does the job of moving heavy stuff better than even the most buff of gym bros, basically, right? And a computer does the same thing. This past spring, actually, I told the story to our teachers at in-service. My nephew, my second nephew, is in 7th grade this year, and he had a birthday here just in this past August. And he had already been doing what many kids do at that age. Even back in May, he was writing out his birthday wish list on a piece of paper. And one time, he actually wrote it out on like a prayer card in the auditorium and left it strategically on the pew one Sunday morning as we were leaving. And of course, I picked it up, and at the top of his list was a PC. He wants his own computer, and which is a common sight in my family. And so we were thinking about this, and like I thought it'd be really cool if he had his own PC, and wanted to get it for his birthday. And we came up with a scheme that what we would do to cut costs is we would take my computer at home, empty out all the parts, buy a new case for him, and put my computer, wipe it and all that kind of stuff, put it in a new case and gift it to him, and that would be his computer. And it would be plenty good for anything he could possibly use it for. And so we did, and he loves it. And he's on all the time, and almost every day at school he asks me if I'm going to play video games with him tonight. And he asked me today, and I said, no, I'm busy. And Which of course left me in the position of I no longer had a computer of my own, whatever to do, except buy myself a whole new machine. This is the processor that I got. Perhaps you recognize this device. This is called a central processing unit, or CPU for short. It is, and I do apologize if you can't see as well from the sides. I'm not really sure what to do about that. We should have had this class in my classroom. That would have never been a problem. A CPU does the job. Actually, can anyone tell me what does the CPU do in a computer primarily? What's its main job? Any ideas? Joe?
It thinks.
It thinks, yes. In fact, the CPU is what's responsible for doing most of the calculations or the thinking of the computer. Of course, the word computer comes from the word compute, which essentially just means to do math, right? So the CPU is responsible for most of the calculations of your computer. It may be the smallest part of it, but it's actually often the most expensive part. And in fact, it's so powerful that unless it is actively cooled by a dedicated piece in your computer, it will melt itself by overheating, basically. To give you some context here, this CPU that I bought, it's made by a CPU manufacturer called AMD, and CPUs have their speed at which they're able to think measured in a unit of measurement called, it's called a clock cycle, basically. And it's measured in hertz. So actually, if any of you more mechanical-minded people, you might recognize that actually the way a computer works is shockingly similar to how a clock works, actually. And that it has a back and forth cycle, and in each cycle, it performs a number of calculations. And basically the speed at which it can go through those cycles and how many calculations it can perform per cycle is what they'll put on the store shelf as far as how fast the CPU goes. So for instance, this CPU is measured at a rate of 5.5 gigahertz. So to put that in layman's terms, that means that this CPU can perform 5.5 billion calculations per second. And I should say 5.5 billion cycles per second. Each cycle, back and forth, you think of it like a clock, can actually be more than one math problem being calculated, right? Or more than one thing that your computer is calculating or doing. But like most modern CPUs, this CPU is not limited to just 5.5 gigahertz. In fact, this CPU has 8 what are called cores inside of it, which are like separate brains that all function independently, and they will take a task and divide it into pieces amongst themselves and each do their own thing. Each one of these cores runs at a speed of 5.5 gigahertz at maximum load, which means that all told, that a CPU like this is capable of performing well over 100 billion calculations of any kind per second. Let that sink in for a moment. 100 billion math problems per second. That, of course, blows any human labor out of the water. And what it really shows us is what's amazing about computers is it's not just what they can do, it's the scale that they do it at. I gave our teachers this analogy that this is kind of like we'd recently had a elementary tear-out party where they're like tearing out pages out of books and stapling and that kind of thing. That would be like, 100 billion papers being stapled by 5.5 billion staplers, all moving at about 70% the speed of light, essentially. It's incredibly fast. And this is just a consumer-grade CPU. This is nothing compared to what's powering the latest AI programs out there or the supercomputers that run them or that kind of thing. This is just something that's available at Best Buy or Micro Center or something like that. So then let's turn the topic then over to AI itself. Now, in this lesson today, we're going over kind of like a hodgepodge of topics. I understand that a group this size, there's a lot of variance as far as what your experience with AI might be. This might be a totally new topic to you, and you don't know anything about it, and that's all right. Maybe you've fiddled around with it, perhaps. Maybe you've read a little bit about it. And so I want to kind of explain where it's come from, how current AI kind of, in a nutshell, works today, where it's heading, perhaps, and then, of course, what are the ethical dilemmas and issues that we're going to have to work through even today or possibly tomorrow. before I get really too deep into this, and then once I do, I'm lost, sorry. I should also mention that, of course, you guys have homework if you're taking this class for credit. And Pastor Ben says you have a Google Classroom set up, which is very progressive and modern of you all. And I've been using Google Classroom for years now. And so there is an assignment. I've also posted a copy of this handout on there in case you lose yours. And the assignment for this class, I try to keep it pretty simple and straightforward. It's in 2 parts. One part is going to be to watch a video. Very straightforward. You just watch the video, all right? It's a video I'll explain a little bit more about later. And it's about half an hour long. And then the second part is you're going to write a 1-page kind of ethical explanation for how you would deal with a particular ethical issue related to AI. And I'm going to give you all the options to pick from during our lesson tonight, and they're also on your handout too. And you're just going to pick one of those, and you're going to write about 1 page about how you think, based on what you've learned, not just today, but hopefully last week as well, if you were here, and about how you would tackle that particular problem. And then you can turn in that paper on Google Classroom if you're really techie and you know how to do that, or you can just, I don't know, get your typewriter out. And I laugh, but I have one. I have 2 typewriters actually in the building, and I even have an Apple II from the '80s up in my computer lab right now that Loy Hetrick donated to me, and which it was a lot of fun. Okay, so first of all, and by the way, I do hope you feel comfortable enough, especially in a fairly intimate setting like this, asking questions, comments. I'm kind of depending on that kind of interaction with you tonight. I welcome it, so don't feel like you have to sit in silence the entire time. Michael's demonstrating right now, please.
Is that image AI generated?
Yes. That's actually kind of like your extra assignment. Figure out how much of my presentation is AI generated. Yeah, where are the deep fakes? Oh, believe me, I got one coming. Don't worry. You know what? That reminds me, I need to make sure I have the volume turned on the screen tonight. So first topic I want to kind of discuss, I hope it was muted, is how new is AI, right? We've all been hearing about it for the past couple of years at most, but is it really that new? You know, my older brother Peter, who served in the Army for many years, told me once recently that when he was deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, one of the 2 of them, he did both. He was enthusiastic. And he told us about how they would go around, and when they did not have a translator to talk to the locals, the Army gave them this big, bulky black box. And all they were told is when the Arab-speaking person talks, hold this up to them, and it would hear what they say, and then it would spit back English out loud to them. This was in 2007, is when this thing was live translating another language into English and then speaking it back to the soldiers. Now, I'm sure by today's standards it was fairly rudimentary, but the point is, it's not really that new. You can probably think of times when you've seen evidence of AI, even in civilian life. If we go back to the early 2000s, you might know that one of the reasons that Google became so popular is because they used a machine-like-ish algorithm to rank web pages and how high up on the search list it should be. They started using automated filters to try and remove spam. Really, we started to see more tools like this come up in the 2010s when digital assistants, which nobody likes that I've ever met, started coming around. Microsoft actually bundled its own digital assistant with Windows 10 in 2015. I remember being excited about this at first. It was called Microsoft Cortana, and it was totally useless. I hated it. I disabled it as soon as I could. And it's still around, you can still use it, but those things started coming around the mid-2010s. You might remember when your email clients started completing your sentences. Perhaps you might remember in 2017, Gmail started introducing Smart Reply, in which it would suggest a reply to an email that you got. Usually pretty short, it's still around today. Something like, thank you, or I think so too. And you could just click it and it would just type that for you and you could just hit send. The next year, Smart Compose was introduced to Gmail, which would suggest an entire sentence, not just the next word, but an entire sentence as you type. Microsoft Outlook began using AI to sort emails by urgency, like it would mark it if it's important or not. Gmail does this now too, where they're no longer so much concerned about showing your emails in chronological order if you allow this setting, but by urgency, so it thinks. And then, of course, in the 2020s, this really started to kick off in late 2022 when ChatGPT's first version, public version, released. And that is a language model AI. And then there were many others that came afterwards. And that's kind of where we are today. And so I wanted to start by sharing some of the things that I currently use AI for. Because in late 2022, when ChatGPT and all those other ones came out, of course, myself and Andrew Fry and some of the other teachers just started goofing off with this stuff. And now I'm the AI expert. Well, I've used it for a number of things. Language model AIs like ChatGPT and others I'm going to show you today are great as like an actually useful digital assistant, one you don't actually have to talk to, but you can type to. I've used it for brainstorming ideas. I've used AIs for helping me tweak outlines that I've created. I've used it to help me proofread things or rewrite documents that I've already written. I've asked AI to take a complex topic and try and simplify it. And it's great when you say like, hey, explain quantum mechanics as if I was in K5, you know? Just see what it does. I've used it to retrieve academic sources and find them online. I've used it to rewrite texts and change the theme of a text. I had last year I did a skit with my history students, both in high school and the junior high level, where I wrote a script for the start of World War I, right? And you have all the different, each of them had a part to play, and they were playing a country, Germany, France, Russia, Serbia. And they had lines and stuff they had to speak, and if they did it right, then they would recreate the sequence of events that led to the start of the First World War. And it was a pretty simple kind of script that just said there was the assassination, all that kind of stuff. And then I gave it to ChatGPT and I said, rewrite this as if this was like a 1920s mobster scene, all right? And it rewrote the whole thing instantly, and it was good. I had it rewrite it as if it was written by Shakespeare, and so it turned it into this Elizabethan, forsooth, the Grand Duke is shot, basically. Let me show you another one. Of course, this is a painting depicting what famous event from American history? This is the Declaration of Independence. If you got that wrong, well, you turn in your citizenship card. And of course, here's the famous preamble of the Declaration of Independence. Now, out of curiosity, and this is really a shot in the dark, are any of you in here good at a Donald Trump impression? Anybody? I'm not. Would you be willing to read something in his voice if I put it on the screen? Because I gave ChatGPT this might have been heretical. Forgive me. I gave ChatGPT the preamble to the Declaration of Independence. I said, rewrite it as if this was a speech made by Donald Trump. You don't have to if you don't want to. But, is he ready? Here it is.
Listen, everybody. Here's what's going on. Sometimes a people, a great people, the best people, have to stand up and say, we're done. We're moving on. We're not going to be treated unfairly anymore. And when we do it, believe me, we do it better than anyone else. It's a tremendous truth that all men are created equal. Nobody thought we could say it, but we did. We got rights, big rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Fantastic rights. And government, let me tell you, government only exists to protect those rights. If it doesn't, if it fails, if it becomes weak, corrupt, totally out of control, the people have the absolute right to change it, replace it, make it great again. That's what this is about. A new nation, very powerful, very strong, the best nation in the history of the world. And we're going to make sure it wins because America never settles for second place.
Now that's the kind of thank you. That's the kind of teacher-audience interaction I was looking for tonight. Pretty good, right? It gets the same message across. It really sounds like him, and it put that together in less than a second, basically, right? And I've also used other AI programs to generate images. And I'll show you a few samples of just pictures I've made. Of course, I made AI pictures of computers while at a computer. This was supposed to be a home computer from the 1990s to make me feel nostalgic. And a few more. Nothing about this image is real. This is totally AI generated. You can even give it a style and say, actually redo that, but make it stylized, like a cartoon or something like that. Here's another one. Maybe I was feeling more serious one day and I decided to have it make a medieval looking setting, like this knight looking at a castle, completely AI generated. One time I was feeling really chaotic and I told it, show me a picture of armored battle ducks fighting each other in the Great Duck Civil War, and that's what it spat out. Terrifying, actually. Sometimes I've had it make scenery, kind of background images, like this kind of sci-fi looking hallway. I told it one time to make a 19th century oil painting of a rural village in the countryside made in the style of 19th century realism, and that's what it came up with. And here's another example of that same prompt. Recently, I figured out how NASA did it. Just kidding. But this is AI generated. Actually, that would have been probably more impressive if they had this in the 60s than actually getting to the moon. And not only will programs today, create an image like that for you, but it'll actually even allow you to animate it slightly too, like this. And so again, the program did all that by itself. It made the image, it offered to animate it, and I said, yeah, do this. And then it would offer me, change it to this, or make it longer, or make there be more motion. I think if I did that, he'd actually fly off the screen or something like that. Look at this. This is a video showing an AI that was told to make a movie trailer, basically. And in this case, and the sound's coming out of my laptop, I gotta fix that. But in this case, nothing is real. It's all AI generated. It was told, make a historical footage of California during the gold rush. And it's just a camera, and it's flying around. It's even now on a subway, and it's got people with their reflections in the glass. Nothing is real in this video. And that was from 2024. And now I need to do what all great tech guys do, which is solve IT problems in the middle of their presentations. There we go. Did it. All right. This next one is a question, an AI that was given the task, basically, what if the passengers on the Titanic were like Gen Z influencers and they vlogged while on the Titanic? I guess I'll let this play out. You can see they're showing a problem with the AI is it does not know what to do with that plastic chair. And it just kind of like morphed. Cute dog, not real. They're talking now about how they're worried how this will affect the presidential election. It didn't, as far as we know. Okay, so what if the passengers of the Titanic vlogged while they were boarding the ship?
There she is, the Titanic. I'm finally going aboard. We're off. Can you believe it? The Titanic. What a send-off. This is going to be the most amazing journey.
Good morning from the Titanic. The sunrise over the Atlantic is simply breathtaking. It's a bit brisk, but utterly magnificent.
It's so peaceful out here today. The sea is like glass. I wish this journey could last forever.
Welcome to my little corner of luxury aboard the magnificent Titanic. Isn't it just splendid? I can hardly believe I'm really here.
So this one's particularly impressive because it's got movement, there's audio. Now, the delivery of some of them is kind of deadpan, like, wow, it's the Titanic, And so Joe, what do you think? Joe Campbell here owns a literal schematic and blueprint of the entire Titanic, and so I knew he would appreciate that.
The AI has the look of the ship actually very inaccurate.
That's fair. This next one is another type of project where people have been taking historical photos and having an AI colorize, but also then animate them to kind of bring them to life. And this next video is a collection of Civil War photos, many of them you've seen, I'm sure, countless times, and then just kind of making them move. So of course, video did not exist in the 1860s. I'm sure all of you have seen this picture of Lincoln, and now he moves and shakes hands with McClellan. So obviously, as a history teacher, I tend to gravitate towards this kind of stuff. It's just kind of interesting. And then there's one final example on the video side I'll show you, something called a deep fake. Are any of you familiar with what a deep fake is? Okay. Lawrence, tell us what a deep fake is.
Taking an actor or someone and putting someone else's face on it in a very realistic manner.
Yeah, and then you can even then like change what they've said, right? And so in this, I mean, look at Robert E. Lee just walking towards you. Like my grandmother on my mom's side was from Virginia. She would have like fainted at that if she'd seen that, I think. We have a story in our family that when my parents were adopting my second brother, Greg, that there was a rumor that they were going to name him Grant. And she said, my grandmother said, if you call him Grant, I'll call him Lee. And so they had to change it to Greg. That might have been a myth. Okay, so this next one, kind of silly.
Have I ever told you the story of the magical pistachio? I got lost in the grocery store and couldn't find my way out. But that's when I saw it, a glowing pistachio. It spoke to me and said, follow me and I'll lead you to safety. So I followed it and we climbed up shelves and found a secret passage that led me to the bread aisle. And that's how I found my way out of the grocery store, all thanks to the magical pistachio. So if you ever get lost, just remember all you need is a little faith and a magical pistachio to guide you to safety.
So obviously he never spoke that clearly or coherently. But strangely enough, that kind of sounds like a story he would tell. Yeah, and it's funny, but can you imagine if someone with more nefarious designs could do with something like that? Hold that thought. Let's go back and look a little bit about current AI tools today, and I'm just gonna. There's way too many to even show you, but I'll just mention that these are some of the most current, popular, kind of the most versatile AIs that are available right now. We would call these language model AIs, and that basically you type things to them and they return a result of some kind or answer a question, or maybe they could even create something. So ChatGPT is probably the most well-known of all of them. It was the first one kind of introduced in this current batch of AI. It's one I've been using today for the most part. Microsoft has their own AI now called Copilot. It is now a standard feature of Windows operating systems. So if you have a Windows PC running Windows 11, Copilot is now built in. You can use it anytime. It's free. Google's answer to that is called Gemini. Many people use Anthropic's AI called Claude. I haven't had a chance to check that one out, but I've heard people say it's very powerful. Elon Musk's X company, formerly known as Twitter, their built-in AI is called Grok. And then one of the leading AIs coming out of China is called DeepSeek. And so these are kind of the ones you would hear people kind of talk about. Now, these are pretty like general purpose AI. There's plenty of other ones too. Some that specialize just in image making, some that specialize just in music or other kind of very niche applications. I found one that there's a whole branch of AI programs that do something called voice cloning, in which you teach it a person's voice, and then you can write text for them to say. And so I had this brilliant idea that I downloaded Pastor Ben's lesson from last week, and I was going to upload it to this voice cloning AI, and then make him say who knows what. And but it turns out that particular company that I had downloaded their program for had some ethical guidelines, and interestingly, in order to use his audio to generate my own audio, I had to speak into my microphone first for a limited amount of time to prove that my voice matched his voice. So you weren't allowed to use someone else's voice, you could only use your own to clone. And which I thought was a very common sense and a guideline, but I'm sure if I dug deeper into the greasier parts of the internet, I could have found one that I ran out of time. Too bad. Okay, so these are all examples of AI tools that use, we'll talk about how do they work, right? Like all pieces of software, they follow instructions. And And AI it can be, when you first use AI, it feels like magic. If you've ever done that, you might use a tool and just feel like, how does it know how to do this? It is true, though, that the more you use it, the more you encounter it, the probably less magical it becomes, because you start to see patterns, you start to see repetition, you start to see weaknesses. But generally speaking, these AI programs are fed tons and tons and tons of data, and they're essentially just really, really, really good at recognizing patterns. They use algorithms to kind of reason, so to speak. That's not true reasoning, but to essentially calculate what's the most likely next thing to do. Like, an email client that predicts your next word is just basically basing that on what's the most likely word to follow this word. If you say at the end of your email, have a nice day, right? Even we can figure that out, right? And so can AI can too. It's not going to put, have a nice Butterfinger, all right? It realizes that after looking at literally millions and millions of emails, there's people end their day, in English at least, end their emails with have a nice day. And so that's how it figures that out. How does it know to recognize an animal like a butterfly, right? Yes, sir, question.
I have a question about that. If you're in a room with a group of people, this happens to me all the time in church when I'm taking notes
Yeah.
on my phone, and it will automatically take and put the next word in. Is that because other people in the room are doing it, and that's why it's getting that?
Could you tell me what you're doing exactly with your phone?
I'm like taking notes about the message.
Oh, and it's predicting what to write next?
Yeah, it's predicting what the pastor's points are going to be, or maybe the points are already up there on the board. I figure other people have written it, and I just am typing it in. And
I think this is what I just described is probably what's happening. Pastors' outlines are very straightforward, and he does that on purpose to make them easy to remember. He even alliterates, a lot of the time, right? So it really wouldn't be that difficult for an AI to guess what the next word is going to be, especially if you've done this many times, especially at the same time of day on a Sunday, and it figures out this guy's at church. Well, it already knows that anyways, because your phone knows where you are at all times. I don't think so. The more you study this kind of stuff, the more I'm like, maybe, I wouldn't be surprised, but I couldn't explain it to you if I could. That's one of the things. That's one of the things about this particular topic is, as compared to what you're going to get, I'm sure next week with Dr. Smalley and Mr. Lefew, the week after that, is AI is incredibly unsolved when it comes to ethical discussions and where it's going, because it's such an emergent topic that half of the techniques and things I show you today could be totally obsolete in a year and a half from now. And so you ask me a question like that, whenever you talk to people who work in the government or work in the military, they're always just like, "Dude, you have no idea, what they can do." All right. Anyways, how does it know how to recognize a butterfly? Well, because it's seen a billion pictures of a butterfly, and so it's seen so many of them that it knows every characteristic of it, and it can get pretty good at recognizing, a particular butterfly or another type of animal or that kind of thing. And that AI are taught basically through not necessarily quality instruction, like you're getting tonight, but on just mass repetition. And again, I told you at the beginning of class, if a computer can process billions of calculations per second, imagine that you're teaching a student and they're not just getting that lesson once, they're getting it billions of times with all the very possible variations you could possibly have, and then some. That's a computer AI, essentially. We'll talk next about some common restrictions. So when using some of these products, like I listed out here, you will notice that most AI companies, they have more than one version of the same product that they're currently offering. All AI companies have an internal secret version of their AI that is kind of like their secret sauce. It's the proprietary. It's a secret. It's their best version of their AI that they're constantly using to then work on the next AI, basically, to train the next version. And then they'll offer a couple of different other versions to the public. Most AI platforms offer a paid and a free version. And the free version may be restricted into how often you can use it or how many questions you can ask it. Usually it is an older version of the AI from 6 or 8 months ago. and the new flashier model you got to pay a subscription for of some kind, and that varies wildly as far as how much it is. Many of them are not that expensive, but if you're just getting into AI or just want to experiment with it, I would just use a free version. Definitely don't use a paid version unless there's something specific you want to do, and you need that paid version, or you're just really curious like me. Also, a lot of AI tools will have limitations on what they're allowed to do, and this is kind of where we get to see kind of what is society. How is society answering ethical questions now? There's certain topics that a lot of AI will not answer or engage with, at least directly. Certain judgment, evaluations of judgment on certain, especially current events, they will shy away from. It will often shy away from celebrity names and that sort of thing, especially when you're like, make me an image of, I don't know, Tom Brady slipping on a banana, okay? It may not actually do that because he's a current celebrity and they don't want to make mockery kind of images and that kind of thing. And so it will avoid that. But you will also notice that many AI will have different ethical guidelines than other ones. Some are more loose. Elon Musk's Grok AI, more like a loose cannon. It will do a lot. It will be very blunt. And whereas some of the other more corporate ones, like Gemini or Copilot, are a little more like cautious, shall we say. And that all boils down to how they're trained and what instructions they get. Because an AI chatbot is essentially given instructions. It's told what it is, what its name is. It's told a whole host of instructions. Don't talk about this. Don't deny the Holocaust. All right. Make sure that you compliment the user. Actually, some of these AI, like ChatGPT, loves to tell me how smart and awesome, and handsome I am. And like I've actually asked it. What?
That's not just me.
No, I know. I thought what we had was special, but it's every chum who uses it. And that's all on purpose. I've even asked it, because I would ask it questions, and every time it's like, great question, how insightful. And I'm like, if I asked a dumb question, would you tell me? And it would kind of like skirt it around that. Many of you, some of you might have come to my summer scramble class this past summer, and I did not use AI to make those lessons. I made them myself. But what I did do was when I was finished with each week, I would upload my PowerPoint to ChatGPT and tell it to evaluate and to tell me where it thought my lesson was good or where it was bad. And it would give me that feedback. And I asked it, like, if my lesson was garbage, would you tell me? And it said it would. So, and I even had it like rank, like which one was the best of the 3 weeks, like, put them in order and why. And I think it did a pretty good job. Art bots, AI that create images, do often have very strict restrictions on what they're allowed to make. There's virtually no company right now that's like among the big name companies that wants to be known as the pornography bot. They don't want that. And so that's not on the front page of technology today. It's definitely out there, of course. It's just not the big companies that, Microsoft and Google don't want to be known for that right now. But that doesn't mean that it's not possible. The AI does not know what pornography is. It doesn't. But it does know what the human body looks like with or without clothing. And so it has to be trained not to do certain things, not to portray the human body in a certain way. And it's not perfect in any measure. But that's kind of where things kind of settle right now. So then we get to the part of the night where we start kind of mentioning some ethical dilemmas. And when you do your assignment, this is where your possible topics can come from. And I tried to list a whole bunch. I wrote my own. I had ChatGPT write some, actually. See if you can tell. Well, it's actually very obvious because mine are just like notes and it's like a whole scenario. All right? And so let's go through some of this together. Is it ethical for an AI bot, and I'm just using bot short for robot, right, to make images for users without crediting the artists that it was trained on? So an AI made that image of Lady Justice in a like cool computer coding background. All right, that's not real. No human made that. But humans did make the AI that bot was trained on and drew inspiration from. Because again, the AI does not know who Lady Justice is on its own. It only knows that because of art that it's been trained on hundreds of thousands, millions, whatever, of images it's seen of that piece of art. So one of the controversies today is it responsible, is it ethical for companies to use AI-generated art when the artists who have their work used to train on it are not being compensated? Is it ethical to then sell that product with AI-generated art? Should the artists, I mean, and the sad thing is, like, even if they wanted to compensate those artists, they have no idea who it is. Like, the software engineers can't go into the AI and be like, where did you draw that information from? The AI doesn't know. It can't tell you most of the time. And that's how complicated these AI are nowadays, is that they have been training and thinking and analyzing so much data that not only do their human engineers not actually know exactly how they work, the AI themselves cannot usually tell you exactly how it got to certain conclusions. Now, it will try, it will give steps, it'll say, I went through this, but if I asked it, where did you get the inspiration for this? It'll probably show me a bunch of pictures of Lady Justice, but it doesn't actually know which particular file it was trained on whenever to create that image. So should AI companies be required to compensate them? Is it right to enter into an art competition or a writing competition and use AI to either partially or completely win that competition? Is that ethical? Should art competitions, like we do one at school, here at Colonial, and we've got all kinds of painting and photography and crafts, woodworking. Should we add an AI category to our fine arts competition? That's a question. I was reading once that there are certain countries that are experimenting with adding AI to their judicial systems. This one can get scary fast. Should AI be allowed to be used to automate judicial procedures? What if a lawyer uses AI to come up with his arguments and never actually reads his cases or his literature that he's looking back on to make his argument? What if it's not a jury trial, but the judge uses an AI to kind of calculate what the punishment should be for someone who is declared guilty, or any other kind of procedure? Is that ethical? Of course, the big one for us here at Colonial is, should students be allowed to use AI to do their coursework? And if you read in the news at all about this topic, you will find plenty of stuff. I was reading one yesterday where a particular company did a survey of college students. They sampled like several 100,000 college students and their research papers that they turned in, and found that half of them were completely AI generated. Half of them. And that may be lowballing it in some schools. I've heard school parents kind of mention to us that their kids in college have told them, Mom, Dad, all my friends are using AI to do their writing assignments. It's everywhere, and the teachers have no idea about any of it. And so imagine what's happening is that very soon we're going to have a whole generation of college graduates who don't know anything about their major, actually, because the AI wrote it for them. Yeah, comment.
So my question is, how do they source it?
How do they figure out if they're AI generated or not?
How does a college student source if you use AI to write it?
Yeah, so you can ask the AI to come. Oh, believe me, the AI is incredibly good at this. You can ask an AI any topic, write me a paper this long, it has to have this many sources, make sure they're academic sources, make sure they use Encyclopedia Britannica, make sure they use this source. Oh, by the way, throw in a few grammatical mistakes just to let them know it's me. And it will do it really well. In fact, for most people, it will write better than they would ever, even if they gave it their best. So it will source itself, it will format an MLA, it'll do the whole 9 yards in about 2 or 3 seconds.
Well, one of the interesting things too about the sources is they will often hallucinate.
Yeah.
And come up with fake sources. They've actually found professionals who've been using AI. I think there was even a lawyer who did. And part of the reason they found it is they started checking sources, and there was a science paper as well where this happened, and the sources didn't exist. The AI, they sounded like sources. And I actually did this when I was working on my dissertation. I said, hey, do you have any sources on the topic I was talking about? And it would pull like authors that I was familiar with and titles that sounded good, and I would look it up, and none of it existed.
Yeah, so he mentioned the term hallucinate. This is what AI people are calling a situation where an AI lies, basically. It makes up something. And this is not fully understood as to why the AI does this. It's probably related to the fact that the AI is driven so much to please the user and to succeed at the task that losing is just not an option. Like failing the task is not an option to many AIs. So if it goes through its progression, it goes through its algorithm, its steps of coming up, like I had this happen to me where I asked an AI I gave it my PowerPoint slides and I said, write 20 multiple choice questions based on these notes that I gave it. It wrote 18. And I was like, that's weird. Computers don't get math wrong very often, right? And I asked it, I decided this is a useful learning scenario here. I asked it, why did you only make 18? And it was like, great question, Daniel. Wow, you're smart. You got me. And it said, well, I went through my progression of all the steps I go through, and when I went through my progression, I just only ended up with 18 questions. And I would need a second pass to go and get the other two. And it said, all right, do it. And it did, right? So hallucinate means it lies or it makes up something. And of course, all these AI companies will tell you, hey, if you're using our AI, we don't guarantee 100% results, accurate results. You're using this at your own risk. But of course, it's so easy to just type in what you need, copy and paste into where you need to do it for work, and just assume that it's all correct. But if you're going to use AI responsibly, dare I say ethically, you've got to double check stuff. A good way to do that, by the way, is if an AI makes a claim or makes sources for you, is ask it for links to those sources. Insist that you must link this source. Any source you use must have a link to it. And then you can click those links, and if it goes nowhere, then it was a fake source, or it'll catch it before then. So yes, those are things to be watching out for. Can AI be biased? Well, that depends on who trained it. And there's been times, I'm sure you've seen this sometimes makes the news where you ask different AIs different complicated, controversial questions, like about immigration or about election security or about who shot JFK. And different AI will respond in different ways, and you could clearly tell the political leanings of the people who came up with the AI. One question I often ask come up with my students when talking about this kind of discussion is there any sort of privacy when using AI? What do you think? Is it protecting your information, questions that you ask it, anything you tell it? No. There is no privacy, and you know what, folks? There has not been any privacy with computers in a long time. I hate to break it to you, but the idea of real, true digital privacy has been dead for at least a decade. Your phone is constantly tracking where you go, listening to what you do. Even if you turn it off, most of them are still listening to you. And of course, a program like an AI that depends on being trained on as much data as possible, of course they're collecting your information. Of course they're listening to you. Do any of you have, you don't have to raise your hand, one of those Alexa, speaker things in your house or anything similar to it? Oh, believe me, it's listening to you all day long. I can talk about what I need to get at the store tonight or something like that, and guess what ad will pop up, on my phone or on my computer upstairs. No, the answer is no, you do not have privacy online, which should give you pause as to what you use the AI for exactly, with that in mind. How about this question? If an AI writes music, can it be copyrighted? That's an interesting question. I'm not a music history expert, but perhaps you're familiar with the 19th century, I believe that's right, composer Schubert. And he wrote music and that kind of thing. He wrote a symphony called Symphony No. 8, but he never finished it. And there were two movements at the end that were left unfinished. And so the Chinese company, Huawei, decided to give his music to an AI and say, hey, how about you try guessing what the rest of his symphony would look like, what it would sound like. So it wrote the music to it. Here it is. Here it is. That was written by an AI. Now, they gave the melody to an actual composer, and he kind of turned it into something could be played by an orchestra. But it's kind of just interesting. Should if they do that for other people, if they're like, make me a soundtrack. I don't know. Someone give me a famous movie composer. John Williams. Okay. I want, like, if John Williams did Star Wars again, what would it sound like, Can that be copywritten, even though it's heavily based on someone's real-life work? How about some more detailed examples? Dilemmas, we'll call them. Autonomous vehicles, right? We've been hearing about these for years. Imagine that an autonomous car faces a split-second choice. There's people in front of it in the street. Swerve to avoid hitting a group of pedestrians, but in the process, put your passengers at risk by, I don't know, running into a wall or something. Or stay the course, hit the pedestrians, but protect your passengers inside. Ooh, what do you do? This is like the train with the train tracks, and you have the people on you have the engineer, do I pull the lever or not, right? What should the AI be programmed to do? Today's AI, I feel like, would hurt all of them somehow. It'd run the people over and then throw the people out the door, probably. How about in healthcare? A hospital uses AI to assist doctors in diagnosing patients. The AI is more accurate most of the time, but sometimes it makes mistakes. Patients don't always know whether when the doctor walks in with the clipboard and the diagnosis, did this actually come from a doctor or did this come from a computer? Should hospitals be required to tell their patients the difference? And will we someday go into a hospital and be asked, would you like, what will they call it? They won't call it human versus AI. They'll be like, enhanced, yes. Excuse me, would you like the enhanced package today with your diagnosis? Or are you going natural, And, yeah. Well, yeah, and we may get to the point where the insurance companies are looking at the numbers, the trends. They're like, well, I don't know. The AI is really good. Maybe we'll save money if we just kind of gently push our customers into going with the AI. Question?
No, it's not a question.
Oh, you're just waving at me.
No, I was make 1984 but more realistic.
Oh, trust me, I'm just getting started. You haven't seen anything yet. We already talked about deep fakes. What if a film studio uses AI to recreate a dead actor, brings them back to life into the movies? Maybe the family gives their consent, maybe they don't. But fans are worried, is this ethical or not? Should the studio move forward with the project, or should they? No, of course they're not going to show respect. They're out for profits, of course. This is not theoretical, of course. Many of you know that this has been done many times already. The first time I was really aware of this is when they did it in Star Wars, and they brought back Peter Cushing for his role as one of the Imperial officers, Tarkin. And can you tell which one's the real Peter? It's actually a lot more obvious when they're moving. Now, it's the fake one's on the right, and that's for a movie that came out in 2016, so almost 10 years ago. How about this one? The AI pastor. The church experiments with an AI that can generate sermons, prayers, even counsel people. What if we had those Catholic confession boxes, but there's just an AI in there? Some members feel it's a useful tool for outreach. Okay. While others believe only a human pastor, guided by the Holy Spirit, of course, should shepherd the church. Is using AI for spiritual guidance a responsible tool, or does it risk replacing God's ordained role for human leaders? Let's get in the business world. Replacing workers with AI. A manufacturing company can replace not just a small percentage of it, not just a department, but half its workforce with AI-driven robots or some kind of AI force. And this is going to, of course, drastically, potentially increase profits. AI workers don't want time off. They don't have pesky vacations. They don't need dental care. They just have to be maintained, and they keep going. They work 24/7, in fact. Many workers will lose their jobs and struggle to provide for their families. Should the company do this? Or should they keep their human workers, even if it means slowing growth, even if it means being less competitive with other companies who they have to think are also facing the same dilemma? And of course, if one of them does it, they all do it. The irony dilemma. A hardworking, diligent teacher is preparing a lesson on AI ethics for his church's Bible Institute class. After a week of teaching, grading, etc., he turns to you and to you it means the AI, and says, ask him to help brainstorm an ethical dilemmas debate about AI. Is it ethically acceptable to rely on AI to teach students not to rely too much on AI? Or has the teacher become the walking embodiment of irony and hypocrisy? By the way, that one is not one you may write your paper on. That one's just for fun.
I'll have AI write that.
Hey, you know what? Full disclosure, if any of you did that for your essay that you turned into our Google Classroom, I would virtually have no way to know. There are lots of companies out there that will market AI detection tools. I tried one of those once. I fed it the Constitution of the United States and it told me it was 98% AI written. So either that's a lot of nonsense, hogwash, as my other grandmother would say, or, man, the Founding Fathers were really ahead of their time. Like, they were really smart. Well, I don't know about that. Next topic I want to move on to then is this concept of digital citizenship. And this is actually a required class in the state of Indiana that we have to teach our students. We teach it in 8th grade. It's a whole semester about a topic called digital citizenship. How many of you have heard of this term before? Anybody? Okay, like 3 people. Excellent. You're in the right place. Digital citizenship is an interesting topic when it comes to what's our responsibility to technology. Proverbs 14:15 says, "The simple believeth every word, but the prudent man looketh well to his going." Meaning, he does his homework, he studies, he knows what he's talking about. Digital citizenship is this idea that we have a responsibility to use the technology that's available to us in a way that is going to be ethical, that it's not going to put efficiency or newfangled opportunities ahead of our responsibilities to each other as humans. AI can make it even easier to lie and deceive, and we have to be aware of that. And so we have to remember, for every good thing that people say AI can do, remember, it can also do the opposite. If it can cure diseases, it can create them. If it can, protect against viruses and hacking, it can definitely do that. A digital citizen is someone who uses technology, 2 important descriptions here, competently and responsibly. Now, we used to talk about digital citizens being like younger people who are just born into the age of technology. And, I'm like, do I say you older people or we, us older people now? I know to my students, I'm ancient. People used to say, well, that's just from, after my time. I was born before Microsoft, Windows 95, so therefore I can't be good at technology. My grandson, he's a whiz with computers, and the younger people, it's just in their DNA. They inject something in them as babies, I think, and they're just by their nature good with technology. That's definitely not true. I see it every day. It does not mean just that younger generations who are born into technology are the ones who are supposed to be using technology. Digital citizenship means all of us have a responsibility to use it correctly and to understand, at least as much as is reasonably possible, how it works. I, even today, in my 9th grade computer class, had to remind the students how to make a folder and a file on Google Drive. That's it. They needed a folder, and I told them to make a Google document inside of it and give it this name, and I probably had 3 or 4 of them who looked at me like I had spoken in, an ancient tongue to them. They're not born really with that knowledge just baked in necessarily. In fact, I think actually we're actually on the downslope of that, and that younger generations are actually getting worse and worse at using technology, which of course peaked with my generation. And the millennials, I mean, it's kind of a common stereotype that you got the grandparents are struggling with the technology, the Gen Xers are struggling with the technology, the young kids are, and then the millennial comes in and fixes everything, right? Yeah. And because everything was so manual when I was growing up, and today, a lot of kids, they grow up with things that are so automated, they're really actually getting worse at using technology, I think. We should do our best as a group to stay current with technologies and trends. This doesn't mean that we have to embrace every new thing that comes around the corner, but we should be aware of it and understand that, speaking of those young people, they need examples. They need wise adults around them who will show them how to responsibly use technology. And I can tell you from personal experience, just having a teacher who shows them that at school is not enough. That also has to happen in the home, and anything that we do at school, if we by God's grace do it well, can be completely undone if I tell the kids, you shouldn't visit these kinds of websites, you shouldn't do these kinds of things, you shouldn't waste all your time on Instagram, and then they go home and they have completely unfiltered access to the internet with a phone that mom and dad gave them and have no restrictions or monitoring on them whatsoever. I think that's a really bad idea, and I've seen it play out many times where kids have accounts on certain websites that mom and dad don't know about. They have a phone that mom and dad don't know what they're doing, and if it's unfiltered, of course, there's going to often be problems. And so that's kind of like my little plug then there from the school is our young people need guidance and wisdom. Micah 6:8 says, "He hath showed thee, O man, what is good. And what doth the Lord require of thee, but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God?" So some takeaways we should understand with digital citizenship is that while AI is a powerful tool, it can also be used for very, very bad purposes. And we've kind of already hinted at these a lot, to cheat, to lie, to slander people. Imagine all the kinds of embarrassing situations. And even if it's called out, even if everyone hears, if it makes the headlines, the damage is already done. Right? Imagine what this could do to politics, to embarrass people, to waste time and resources. These are all the kinds of things that we have to fight against to maintain that kind of responsible use of technology. In other words, digital citizenship. So then let's look towards the future. This is kind of where AI and technology is right now. But what's coming next? Are we about to anyone watch the Jetsons, cartoon growing up? I love that show, right? And so when it comes to AI and what's coming up next, there's all kinds of predictions that are out there as far as what we can expect. Now, there are many extreme predictions of what's coming up next and then when I say next, I mean people believe that there's going to be major changes happening in the next 5 to 10 years, that we're really on the cusp of something akin to the Industrial Revolution. And those predictions can either range from a future humanity that looks something like this, okay, or it's going to look like this. I love that movie. So either there's going to be an extinction level event, or we're all going to turn into the fat humans in WALL-E who sit on chairs and sip drinks and that. I mean, it's not really a choice to me. I don't know about you. So there are many ideas floating about what may happen next. And is it going to be either of those extremes or somewhere in the middle? Well, a lot of the leading AI experts out there, which I am not one of them, okay? I'm just a guy who goofs off with AI, all right? Is that the next logical step is something called artificial general intelligence, or AGI. Artificial general intelligence is nothing like the current AI tools that we have available to us today. Most of what we have today is very, by comparison, very limited in scope. We have an AI that does pictures. We have an AI that makes funny deepfakes. We have an AI, even like ChatGPT, that's text related, but it kind of exists in a box, and it has theoretical walls as far as what it's allowed to do. AGI would be a complete revolutionary change in that regard. AGI is a more versatile AI that can reason and learn on its own. It's not fed data like a current AI where it just learns patterns. It actually has the ability to think and reason for itself, and it has the ability to continue to learn indefinitely. ChatGPT, if I use it today, and even if I point out a mistake that it's made, right? If it quotes a source, I ask it something really, really specific historical question and it gets it wrong, which does happen, even if I point it out and give it the source that corrects it, if I ask it the same question tomorrow, it will likely forget that I corrected it because ChatGPT is operating on a specific set of instructions that only gets refreshed every few months and when a new version comes out. AGI isn't like that. AGI is designed to be constantly innovating and expanding itself all the time. Here's just a kind of a brief rundown of some of the differences when it comes to its ability to do things. An AGI would be able to like go grocery shopping for you, all right? It would be able to thumb through Kroger or Walmart's website and put things in your cart while you drive to the grocery store so that you can pick it up when you get there at the store. It can make reservations for you. An AGI is like a full-fledged worker. The current AI we have right now are more like incompetent interns, okay? They're enthusiastic, they want to please, but they're not very reliable right now. I'm sure if you've talked to people who, like, their business is insisting on using AI at work, both of my brothers actually have this, that live here in Indy have this problem, and it's made them very resentful of AI because it's not good enough yet, but it might become very soon. If this happens, an AGI is a type of AI that trains itself, and if you understand what that means that means that we're no longer improving in a linear pattern. That's like when the graph goes from like a steady incline to a like increasing incline. Okay, sometimes we call that exponential growth, even though that's technically not mathematically true every single time. But that's when the rate of advancement snowballs, to put it another way. So these would perhaps be presented with some kind of new term. There would be something like, some people think they'll be called agents. What the terms will be, we don't know yet. But these agents will be marketed as an AI worker for you that you can purchase, probably through a subscription, and it will be far more general purpose than what we have today. But the companies that make these agents will always keep the best version, of course, back in their labs. Now, they do this already, where they have their best AI in a controlled environment. In other words, not connected to the internet for security reasons. One, they don't want a competitor to hack their systems and steal their code. And two, they don't want to create Skynet on accident and let it release to, that's the Terminator thing that nukes everybody, let it release to the internet if it ever gets that powerful. But what happens is that AI then trains and creates its own successor. And then that one takes its place, and the older agent becomes the new commercial AI, for instance. And that this would happen faster and faster and faster. And that very soon, this would create something that we would call a superintelligence that is quite literally better at every form of reasoning than humans possible. It's better at philosophy, it's better at writing music, it's better at history, it's better at accounting, it's better at marketing, it's better at speaking, anything a human can do aside from physical labor, because that has to delve into the whole field of robotics, which is related, but we're not talking about it at the moment. It could do better than a human. Just across the board, 99% of the time, it's better than a human. Now, that's interesting. Maybe the first agent would take a couple of years to be created, but that agent's successor would only take a year. And then that agent's successor would only take 6 months. And then that agent's successor would only take 2 weeks, you know. And the video you're going to watch for this lesson deals a lot with this particular topic. Now, that video is meant to be provocative in that it displays a very unsettling possible outcome if this were to take place. Because you realize that once you go over the hill, you can't stop it, basically. And however, their timeline is intentionally made kind of like, the video is called AI 2027. So in the video, there's done by a group of researchers. There's a paper too. It's on my list of resources on the digital version of your handout. It's a research paper done by a group of guys who have, for the last 8 or 9 years done a lot of work with AI and predicting AI. So for instance, they predicted ChatGPT. They predicted a lot of the AI programs that are available today. And this is kind of their month-by-month projection of what's going to happen in the next 5 years, basically. And they kind of have two outcomes. And one outcome is human extinction by the mid-2030s, less than 10 years from now. And one potential outcome is not human extinction, but that the world is essentially run by a global, super intelligent AI that answers to a small council of people, that the AI, whose job it is to make humanity as prosperous and well off as possible, is so good at what it does, and humanity becomes so dependent on using it that it takes control of all resources, it negotiates peace agreements between all nations, unifies the world into basically one government, essentially, one understanding, and, well, we go from there, I guess. Sounds very end timesy to me. Now, if this, and maybe the scariest part is if any of that, even half of that is true, you and I will not see any of it happening. It will all be happening secretly, for the most part. But what we do see is if that kind of thing was necessary, in order to create those AI, you have to have better and better computers that power them, right? What do computers need to run? Electricity. A lot of electricity. What is every major country doing almost out of their mind right now, all over the place? They're building data centers. They're building massive, massive complexes of data centers. We're doing it right now. There are dozens of data centers under construction in the United States right now. China has like I don't know what the last number was, quintuple, there it is, their electricity generation over the past couple of years because they're doing this too. Massive data centers being constructed for the sole purpose. It's not that we need more bandwidth for internet. There's not that many humans. Actually, humanity is decreasing in population right now, right? It's because they're needed for AI. Here's a map of currently where some of the bigger the circle, the bigger the data center that's being constructed. Some of the biggest are like in Pennsylvania, New Jersey. There's a huge one in Arizona. They're all over the place. And here's what some of them look like. This is one under construction. I think this is Arizona. This facility requires the same amount of electricity as a full-sized American city, essentially. And even this has actually already started in some cities that we're seeing utility bills for electricity go up because electricity, it's not necessarily because of inflation or because the electricity is getting more expensive, it's because it's being diverted to data centers. And so supply is becoming more restricted as demand is suddenly going through the roof. And we're not actually getting a whole lot better at generating electricity right now. That technology hasn't really changed. And because we gave up on nuclear power so many years ago, we're kind of limited.
Turn more farmland into solar panels.
Right, solar panels, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Here's another one under construction in America. And so we do see that going on. What we also see is in the world today, those data centers being trained to make AI, and those AI run on computer hardware, and those AI can only get more powerful if the computer hardware is also getting more powerful, the computer chips, like the CPU I showed you at the very beginning of our lesson. And so there is currently basically what we call a chip war happening, where there's a competition between the United States and our allies, such as they are, and China in particular, for who has the most powerful computer chips, not because we want to play solitaire more, but because they're being used to power AI. And if you read into this is kind of like an adjacent topic here when it comes to AI, but this is an application of AI, maybe one of the most important ones, frankly, is when you look into this, there are only a handful of companies on the planet that make the most cutting-edge computer chips available. And they're incredibly complex. The most advanced computer chips right now operate or are soon going to be operating. They measure the size of the computer chips in nanometers, okay? And how big, and the smaller they can make the basic architecture, the transistors and such on a computer chip, the better. And right now, a lot of computer chips are either the size of their most basic building block, like a Lego piece, is the biggest ones are 7 nanometers. That's the oldest, most outdated ones. The newest ones are about to be 1 nanometer, meaning that 1 nanometer is 1/1000th of a meter in size. And these can be manufactured in a fabrication plant like this. This is a fabrication plant under construction in Arizona. You might remember the CHIPS Act signed by President Biden, specifically to try and, because we are very heavily dependent on computer chips made in other countries. And so some of the idea is to try and bring some of that here. But these are the most expensive factories in human history, by far and away. The most expensive factories ever. And they take decades to get up and running. So this will not be running anytime soon. And even when it is, they'll be making middle of the road kind of computer chips, not the very best ones. Does anybody know where in the world the very best computer chips come from, for the most part? They come from a company called TSMC, who has the bulk of its most important fabrication plants in Taiwan. And those people have machines that can do things that literally no other company in the world can do. It's a very narrow supply chain. It includes the United States, it includes Taiwan, it includes the Netherlands, and that's it, basically. And it kind of gives you some what's the word I'm looking for? Understanding of why is it such a big deal about Taiwan, right? Part of it is this. And so that creates the potential for an AI arms race between the United States and China. In fact, the video you're going to watch for this class actually predicts that will be a major theme in the AI development of the next 10 years, is going to be an arms race between the United States and China, fueling who has the better AI. And as far as who does right now, it's kind of like we maybe do, but even if we do have the advantage, they're not far behind. And even just last week, China had an enormous military parade. Maybe some of you had seen it. And more, you see them flexing military muscle. They do drills for possibly invading Taiwan. This conference, they're celebrating the end of World War II, the 80 years since 1945. But most importantly, who his guests were at this parade. Anyone know who his guests were? He had 2. Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin, right? And they were there to specifically solidify their alliance together, that, that they, whatever is about to come in the next few years, that they are on the same team, essentially. And so, of course, China, you remember when we did a parade for Donald Trump's birthday? Was that a year and a half ago? And it's kind of mostly just American soldiers kind of shuffling down the street, and the Chinese, they know how to do parades. And this isn't even the most impressive part. You should have seen the honor guard march down and raise the flag. They're very serious about this kind of thing. Yeah, I know, but it is. This is not AI generated. I watched this happen live last week. It's very real. They rolled out 70 different new weapon systems on that road. Most of them are AI based, have drones, lasers, railguns, all kinds of stuff. Anyways, I already mentioned about the video that you're going to be, I've actually referenced it a couple of times, and so I won't go over that there, but it is called the AI 2027 paper. Again, I showed it to Andrew Fry the other day, and his response to me was, I wish I hadn't watched that. Not because it wasn't interesting. I never send him anything that's not interesting. But it is disturbing, the implications. But also take it with a grain of salt that it is kind of worst case scenario. The purpose of it is to get you thinking about these kinds of problems. What if this was to come true? What if in 5 years, before 2030, it becomes financially untenable for most companies in America to hire humans? What do we do? In the opening line of that paper, if you your assignment's not to read the paper, but it is very interesting. The opening line is, "We predict that the impact of the superhuman AI over the next decade will be enormous, exceeding that of the Industrial Revolution." That's an incredible statement, and you'll go through all the different steps along the way that they think that happens, and it's I hope it's thought provoking for you. and interesting. Maybe just kind of brace yourself when you watch it. But I think it's very interesting. And that finally leads me kind of really to the end of my material for today. Just some closing thoughts I had when I was thinking about how to end this, and then I'll be happy to take maybe any closing questions or comments. When it comes to using AI, we have to remember that we are always responsible for what we do with technology. Always, always, always. I tell the kids this all the time. It doesn't matter if what you posted, you did it at home, or you did it, your friend made you do it or something like that. We are always responsible for what we do with technology. How we use AI in the future is really going to show us a lot about who we are and what our beliefs truly are, what our character is, and how biblical is our thinking really when we have a tool in front of us that is basically magic. Imagine going back to the Middle Ages and trying to describe to them AI. Probably get burned at the stake. Maybe it's time that we stop saying, what can AI do? And start saying, what should AI do? And so I thank you for your good attention, and I hope you found some of this useful. Again, if you happen to peruse the Google Classroom, there's some resources down there that you can't get off the paper, and some other reading if you would like. And does anyone have any closing questions or comments before I wrap it up today? Yes, ma'am.
Well, as you were talking, the scripture about the Tower of Babel came to my mind. They come, let's make bricks and burn them thoroughly.
Yeah.
And they had a brick for stone, white doom for mortar. And they said, come, let's build ourselves a city and a tower that's top of the heavens, and let us make names for ourselves, that we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth. And the wind came down to the sea, and Pharaoh, children of the man, had built. And the Lord said, behold, we are one people, and they all have one language. And this is only the beginning of what they will do. Nothing that they will now be impossible for them.
Yeah.
And the whole genesis of this is they didn't want to be restricted by what God told them to do. He said, be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. And no, we don't want to do that. And isn't that what Satan said? I will be like the Most High. I mean, this just seems like the fulfillment of that fundamental rebellion against God's restrictions.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
New version of Genesis 3:5. You shall be as gods.
We shall be as gods. Well, the big thing, I'm sure Dr. Smalley will talk about this next week, is using new technologies made possible by AI to genetically alter babies during pregnancies. To design your own baby, basically using CRISPR and other genetic altering technologies. And we can just eliminate all defects and, perfect life. Right. Sir?
I have a question about the politics of all of this stuff right now. Jeff, I'm curious to this other, but I don't really understand where we're at with that. Like, I know Melania Trump has stuff in that she's trying to push. And there's other different, are there two different sides in politics about like deep fakes and things like this, where they're trying to legislate something?
Like when it comes to American politics exclusively? I think right now we are in a very much a Wild West kind of phase of things where so many questions are unanswered. And the government is, like, even earlier I mentioned the question of, can AI-generated content be copyrighted or get patented? And right now, the U.S. Copyright Office states that no, entirely AI-generated content cannot be copywritten. However, on their website, it says, we are currently looking into this. It's under review, right? So nothing is set in stone. As far as important political leaders making moves and that kind of thing, I think for a lot of people, it's an opportunity to get rich quick or to gain an advantage over their rivals. And so they're pushing all kinds of things from cryptocurrencies to AI tools. And I would see something like that as more of just like elites battling other elites for influence at this point, and probably nothing more. That's just my opinion, though.
What about legislating things about people who are doing deep fakes?
Yeah, so that's a lot of that's still up in the air. Now we haven't. I think we haven't really seen like a catalyst level event where someone gets a deep fake and it becomes viral and it really ruins a very famous person, you know? Like, or is a real scandal when like a, you know, I don't know, a TV agency airs a political ad during campaign season and it's really, really provocative, and then it comes out that it's a deep fake and it creates a real big hubbubaloo. We haven't really seen that happen yet, but I think right now, like there have been court cases where celebrities, particularly women who have had I don't know, the inappropriate images and videos of themselves made that are not real, that are deep fakes, and they have been able to legislate against those people if they live in America. If it's outside America, good luck. If the image or video is hosted on a website that's hosted outside the country, nothing they can do for the most part. Yes, sir.
The one thing we really haven't talked about ethically as far as AI is its use of resources, and God gave the earth to mankind.
Yeah.
As some would say, human being. But as the resources, which are finite,
right,
become more and more in demand, we see things like Ohio and Indiana proposing electricity rates increasing by over 15% in the next few years.
Right.
Purely for data centers.
Right.
And things of that nature. And so, how much of our resources are we allowing to be used, and is that ethical?
Right. I think that's a great question. My thoughts on my and again, I'm not going to claim to have the perfect answer to that. My knee-jerk reaction to that is, well, once that starts, there's really no stopping it, right? Because if the AI becomes more efficient at allocating resources, whether that's manpower, literal mineral resources, or electricity, if that becomes better than humans, then why would you ever go back to using humans, right? At the same time, I think it's also important to remember that there's nothing new under the sun necessarily here, even in this case, is we do use technology already to make resource decisions in most fields. Farmers, architects, construction workers, they're using technology to allocate resources to an extent already. But is there a difference when it's an entire intelligence that's reasoning for itself, and at what scale do we say it's okay if it allocates all resources in the country? I would say that is an ethical conundrum, and I don't know the answer, to be completely honest.
And what happens when AI because with these many competing systems,
Right.
built by
Right. My older brother who just left the military told me that even before he left, that the Army is already, right now, using AI to make combat-related decisions. That when troops land somewhere and things happen, that they're constantly feeding in data into an AI, and the AI is making the call of what to do next, and they routinely follow it. It's usually correct. And so it is making battlefield decisions. Of course, AI is controlling a lot of precision military weapons, missiles, and things like that. And of course, like the sci-fi thing is always, what if AI finally decides that humanity's in the way? Watch the video. Thank you. This is a good discussion, though, really. Okay, I'll close in prayer, and we'll be done for tonight. Heavenly Father, thank you for this discussion we could have in this difficult topic. And Lord, give us wisdom, as Solomon asked for. Give us understanding, and to the challenges that we will likely face as a church, as Christians, in the very near future. And Lord, we want to be prepared so that we're ready to give an answer. And Lord, we just ask that your will be done. We know that no matter how powerful man's machines become, that they pale in comparison to your power, and that will never change. That your plans in Revelation don't change just because of a new AI coming out. And Lord, help us to be reminded of that even when we see things, the disturbing things even happening around us in the world. Give us patience as we answer questions, as we deal with ethical situations and related to this topic. Bless us now, Lord, as we go home in Jesus' name. Thank you.